Hello, I've just finished filming this video, which is a long one, bear that in mind, but I think it's a really good one, and I think that I share a lot of valuable insights and lessons that you can learn from my journey, my mistakes, my process, my story that I share. But I just wanted to preface this video by saying a little bit of a disclaimer and a trigger warning. I do talk about themes like pregnancy loss and miscarriage. I also talk about depression and suicidal thoughts. I talk a little bit about body image and eating disorders. So I just kind of wanted to preface that in case it's triggering for anyone and you don't want to watch those parts. I'm going to leave little chapters below. I'm going to leave you can see the chapters where I talk about those different things so that you can skip over them if they are potentially triggering for you. And I just want to send you all of my love and gratitude for being here, for watching. This is vulnerable for me. This is my story. This is my journey. And I hope that it helps you to navigate your own journey. And I hope that the lessons that I have learned and the stories that I share can be of some sort of use for you. That is why I'm putting it out there and sharing it, because I think I do have some valuable lessons to share. So hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And would you just look at this girl who is an absolute nuisance throughout the video, but now she's decided to settle just as I've finished recording. Typical. Got all the beverages, tea, we've got coffee. Hello, welcome. I am being super awkward because I'm feeling all kinds of emotions right now. Nervous, excited, all the things. Today is my 100th podcast episode. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different and special for this episode. And I thought I would come on here and share my story, share the journey I've been on up until now at 33 years of age, turning 34 not too far away in a few months. And I just thought I would share my journey and share all of the ups and downs, because there have been many of them, and share how I got to this place where I am right here and now. Okay, goodbye, Nala. My life looks completely different than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even just 1 year ago. My life looks extremely different. And I think it's really a testament to my dedication and determination to really know myself, to know who I am authentically, to know what my role is in this lifetime, to know why I was put on this earth. I don't think it's a coincidence that I am someone who has always wanted to dive deep into spirituality and self-discovery and all of these different modalities, which there have been many, many of them. And so I'm going to do my best today to give you the most brief version, because I know I do have a tendency to kind of waffle on, and I don't want to waffle, but I also just thought it'd be a bit of fun to kind of tell you about who I am, and also how I have overcome challenges in my life, and how I have created this new vision for my life that 5 years ago, the person who I was just couldn't conceive of, and almost at one point wanted to give up completely. And so I just thought that, I find it inspiring to see how people have changed their life, and to see how people have overcome adversity and struggles, and have reinvented themselves and recreated themselves, and have gotten to know who they authentically are and really stepped into who they are. And that is what my journey has been about. And of course, it is a forever journey. I will preface that I don't believe that we get to this one point in our life and we are done learning, growing. I don't believe that there is ever a destination. It's just a journey through life, and we're always evolving into new versions of ourselves and learning as we go. And a lot of that can be thrust upon us through the experiences that we go through, but a lot of it also can be intentional, and we can choose to grow through what we go through, and we can choose to contribute more of who we really are for the greater good, to help other people, to serve others who are less fortunate, to give and to love the people in our lives that are really important, and to also serve a higher purpose as well. So with all of that being said, let's jump in. So I had, a pretty normal, I would say, upbringing. I was from the get-go a very curious little girl. I loved to do all kinds of creative things, and I don't have a lot of memories from my childhood, but the first thing that kind of comes to mind is that I really wanted to play the trumpet. I had seen someone at school playing the trumpet, and I thought, that is what I want to do. That is the loudest instrument. That is what I want to pick. And I was 7 years old, and I went to my first lesson, and my trumpet teacher said to me, "You're too small, you're too young to play the trumpet. You'll have to play the cornet," which is like a smaller version of the trumpet. And I said, "No, I want to play the trumpet." And he said, "All right then, you'll play the trumpet." So I was a very determined little girl, and I knew what I wanted, and I knew that I wanted to be right there in front of people, center stage. I wanted to be the star of the show, this free spirit, expressing myself and being seen and sharing, the things that I love. And so another funny story that my parents have told me, Nala, she always wants to be where she's not. And anytime there's a closed door, it's like, yeah, let's just persist. Let's see if she'll stop crying. Nally, why don't you come here? Why don't you come here? Speaking of determined little girls, another funny story that my parents told me is that I came home from the first band practice at school, and I was really upset, and I said, "It's not fair, the trumpets have to sit at the back," because I just wanted to be right up the front, like the violinists and all the string instruments being, front and center. So that kind of really shows me a lot about my true nature, is that I do really love to be seen and expressing myself. And so it's no surprise now that I have pursued a kind of career path and creative pursuits where I have kind of put myself out there and shared myself with the world. And anyway, so I just think that's really funny. I also have memories of auditioning for school performances, like school plays, and I always wanted to be one of the main characters, and I did things differently. I auditioned for the main role of would have been like grade 3 or 4. I was probably like 10, 11, I don't know. I was young, and I auditioned for the main role of the school play, which was a male role, but the reason I auditioned for it was because I wanted to be front. I wanted to be the main character, and they had to rewrite the script because I auditioned so well and I got the part. They had to rewrite it into a female position instead of a male position because of that determination. So I don't know, that's just like a really nice little story to kind of paint the picture of who I was when I was little and who I am, always trying to get back to. I think that has been a big part of my journey, is reconnecting with that true self, that little girl who was just not afraid of what other people thought and who just wanted to express herself and loved to try all these different creative things. And that was really a theme throughout my childhood and through my young adulthood. And I did also at the same time, I was a really sensitive child. I remember just crying all the time and being told, don't cry, it's okay, you're too sensitive. And I always felt like I was too much. And so on the one hand, I was this really sensitive child and young adult, but then on the other hand, I just wanted to express myself and be seen and put myself out there. And so this really has become, I've come to understand, is just who I am. There's these different parts of myself, and I believe that we all have these different parts of ourselves that sometimes can seem in contrast with one another, but when we put it all together, it paints this picture of who we really are. And so I was very sensitive as a young adult and as a child. And when I was about 15, my parents split up, which was very difficult on me. I remember just being really depressed. I was really sad and really unhappy. And I developed a lot of ways of coping with that, I suppose. I developed an eating disorder. I don't want to hide any parts of my story or diminish what I've been through. I just want to be honest, but I'll try and do it in the best way possible. But yeah, I from a pretty young age, I had to grow up pretty quickly, and I think that this is the case for a lot of people. A lot of people are forced to grow up before they should. A lot of us miss out on that innocent childhood that we all deserve. And so again, this has been a strong theme throughout my whole journey, is that coming home to that innocent child who missed out on a lot of things, and, reconnecting with that sense of joy and wonder, and not having to worry about things that children just shouldn't have to worry about. So anyway, I then finished school, and I was always a very high achiever. I was always, putting a lot of pressure on myself. I remember feeling very stressed. I remember putting really high expectations on myself and having really high standards for myself. And I did excel in school, but I still never felt good enough. And I think I compared myself a lot to other people, and I compared myself to my sister, who is brilliant, and I absolutely love her with my whole heart, and she's incredible, but she's a genius. She's so intelligent, so smart, and she was my hero. She was my role model. And so it was inevitable that I would compare myself to her and always feel inadequate because I was a more creative child. I am more creative, and she's more of the logical, intelligent, mathematical skills. She has more of these skills. And so I really pushed myself to excel, and I did, but I still didn't feel like I was good enough. And I felt this pressure to follow a very traditional path. A lot of people in my family, I know a lot of us in general have felt and have gone through this kind of traditional path of finishing school, going to university, getting a job, and then just kind of following all of this path that's laid out for us. And that is really what I did. I didn't know what I wanted to do. If I could go back now, and if I was living in this current world that we live in now, where there is a lot more freedom to do different things, and you don't have to, I feel like it's changed a lot. You don't have to follow a stricter traditional path. I would do things very differently. I probably would have taken a gap year to maybe travel or work or explore different things. And anyway, I didn't. I went straight into uni and studied media and communications and arts, and I really hated it. I honestly, genuinely really did not like uni. There were fun parts. I enjoyed some of the partying. I enjoyed some of the friendships that I made, but it was actually a really tough time for me. My trumpet teacher also passed away, who was one of my role models, a really pivotal person in my life, and I also had a really big friendship breakdown. And I think that this is one of the things that is so difficult about your 20s, is that you're learning who you are, and so many friendships change and you do grow apart from people, and people are going in all kinds of different directions. And I had one of my best friends and I had a really big falling out, and I was absolutely devastated, and that really crushed me, and it crushed my sense of confidence in who I was, because it made me start to question everything about myself. It made me start to question whether I was a bad person. It made me start to question all of the things that I had done, and I developed quite severe social anxiety. And so I noticed, like, I would be in class at uni and I just was so afraid to put my hand up, and this young girl who just wanted to be seen and was not afraid at all to put her hand up for things just became like this shell of a person who was so afraid to put myself out there. And I was afraid of making friends, and I was afraid of what other people thought of me. And, you know, I'm only just having this realization as I share this story now, that I think that that really set the tone for the rest of my 20s. I started to adapt who I was in order to please other people. I started to adapt behaviors to cope. So, you know, I did a lot of partying, a lot of drinking. I never really got into drugs, thankfully. I just was never really I was never interested in that. Yeah, I started to drink a lot. I started to, and probably it was pretty normal. You know, I think a lot of people in their 20s party and drink and try different things. And again, you're discovering who you are. And so I think that I definitely used that as a way to cope with those feelings and that social anxiety. When I drank, I didn't have that fear of what other people thought of me. It kind of disappeared, and until the next day when you have a hangover and you feel all kinds of anxiety about what did I say, what did I do, and all these things. And so, yeah, I think that that was kind of a common theme throughout my 20s, is adapting who I was and picking up these different behaviors that weren't supportive. I think I mentioned that I developed an eating disorder. I won't go into details about that, but I had some very unhealthy habits which were linked to drinking and eating, and it was just really not a good time, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. I did a little bit of therapy, but yeah, I guess I just didn't feel safe to share with anyone what I was going through, and so I felt very isolated and alone. Okay, I'm gonna let her out so she doesn't disrupt this whole conversation. Oh, okay, come on, out you go. Okay, we're back. The joys of having a cat. I wanted to then share about my relationships. So I had always had a pattern of being in kind of long-term relationships. It was just something. I never had a problem getting a boyfriend. For some reason, I just always had a boyfriend. So I went from one relationship to the next, a couple of years with different partners. And then when I was 22, I met my ex. And so, I was just kind of going along this path of following the traditional path that was expected of me, finishing uni. I then got a job in government. I worked in communications. It was a great opportunity. I moved to Canberra and we decided to do long distance. So we'd only been together for a few months and then we decided to do long distance. Now, I'm not going to go into details about our relationship because I have recorded a separate podcast episode about my divorce story. I've also recorded an episode about my miscarriage, which kind of led to the divorce. I don't want to say that it was the reason for the divorce because I think there were multiple reasons why that relationship didn't work out, but it was really the catalyst that opened my eyes up and made me realize and become aware of a lot of the patterns that were unhealthy. So I've kind of basically just shared what happened, but ultimately we did end up getting married. We bought a house together, and then that relationship fell apart when I went through a pregnancy loss. And that was the worst thing that has ever happened to me. It was absolutely devastating. And again, I'm not going to go into detail because if you're interested, you can listen to those episodes. I'll have them linked below. But that really was the lowest point in my life. I remember being so terrified and afraid about hurting people. I was terrified to leave, but I also knew that it was the right thing to do. And I was terrified about how he would react. But I was mostly terrified about what people would think of me. I was really afraid to put myself first. And I think that this is the reason why I went through with the marriage, even though there was deep in my heart, I knew it wasn't right. If I was being really honest with myself, there was always that kind of whisper that this isn't right. I was always questioning myself because there was a lot of gaslighting and things like that. Again, I'm not going to go into detail because I also just don't harbor any resentment. I don't have any resentment towards my ex-husband. I don't have any resentment towards that whole period of my life. I truly have let that go and I truly have healed. So I don't really want to rehash things because I just don't feel like it's necessary, and I feel very at peace with what's happened. And I really can recognize now, looking back, that that was the journey that I needed to go on, that was the experience that I needed to have in order to come back to myself, in order to get back onto my right path. And I do believe that happens in life. I think that sometimes things happen that we can't explain. Things happen that we cannot find meaning or purpose in. But I also think that sometimes life has a way of giving us the experiences that we need to go through in order to come back to the truth of who we are, in order to really reconnect with ourselves and kind of knock us back onto the right path. I've heard it described as like our dharma, our life path is like a highway. And we have along that path the choice to get off at different exits. We have the choice to make different decisions, which will take us in different directions. But if we get too far away from our destiny, from the path that we are destined to go down, life will have a way of knocking us back onto that path, onto that dharma, and life will, redirect us back to, Nala's still crying. Life will redirect us back to our true path. I'm just going to let Nala back in. You might hear some subtle purring in the background. So that was my rock bottom. And I don't want to sugarcoat this, but I absolutely had thoughts about ending it all. And I'm so glad that I didn't. I'm so, so, so grateful that I stuck it out, because my life has turned around. And even though it's been a really difficult journey of rebuilding my life and starting over, essentially I started over. I wasn't quite 30, so I was like 29 when everything fell apart, and then I turned 30 the next year, but I was rebuilding. I have been rebuilding in my 30s, and I think that that's something that I really want people to take away from this conversation, is that you can start your life over at any point. You're free to recognize when you have got off track, and you are free to start over. And it will be hard, and it will be scary, and there will be a lot of unknowns, and you will lose people along the way, but you cannot lose who you really are by that, going through that process. It's only going to connect you back with a more authentic, more genuine, more real version of yourself. It's only going to bring you back to yourself. So if you lose people throughout that process, which I did, they're not your people. And that has been a really hard lesson that I had to learn, was to let go of what people think of me. Again, we can see this theme coming up again of just caring what other people think of me. I think that that has been one of the biggest lessons that I have come here to learn in this lifetime, is to let go of other people's opinions and expectations and projections. People will project onto you their fears, their judgments, their inadequacies. People will always project onto us what they are feeling inside, and it's up to us to, on the one hand, take accountability for our part, to take responsibility for the role that we played in whatever the situation, but also to recognize what's ours and what's not ours. I think that that is what self-awareness is really about, is recognizing what role do I have in contributing to this, and what am I carrying that is just not mine to carry? What is it that I can let go of that's just not for me? It's just not mine, whether that's a belief system that we've picked up, whether that is judgment or fear or any kind of story that we may be carrying that doesn't serve us. It's just started raining here. I love the rain. I am such a cozy, rainy weather person. So that has really been my last 5 years, is rebuilding, starting my life over. And I am so grateful for what the universe has given me since making that decision to leave a really unhappy situation and life. And, you know, it meant selling the house that we owned together, and I had worked so hard to be able to afford that house. And it meant letting go of kind of this fantasy, I suppose, that I had created of what I thought my life should be. It meant letting go of, again, all of those opinions of what my family thought, what his family thought, what everybody else thought. You know, divorce in your 30s is still very taboo. I know that it's a lot more accepted these days, but there's still so much judgment. You know, while a lot of my friends were just getting engaged, I was getting divorced. And that's just the way that my story has gone. And I don't feel any kind of judgment towards myself for that. I did for a long time. I carried around a sense of feeling like a failure, and I carried around that judgment that was other people's. But I think I recognized at some point that this just isn't mine to carry. And I know that my heart is in the right place, and I know that actually leaving that situation was the most loving thing that I could do for everyone involved, because it was the honest thing. And sometimes the honest thing doesn't appear to be the most loving and kind thing, but it really is. It's a different kind of love. It's a truthful love. It's an honest love. So yeah, life is very different now. I met Alex, my now husband, and we have since moved to the country. We lived together for a couple of years. I actually moved out with some housemates for a while. Some of you would have seen the journey and seen Luke and Pete. We were really, we were there for each other through COVID, through lockdown in 2020, and we decided to move out together. And I'm so grateful to them for helping me to get back on my feet. I wouldn't have been able to do that. I couldn't afford to do that on my own, to get my own place. So for a period I had to move back with my mum, which was challenging. And moving in with your mum at 29 is really hard when you've been independent and been living out of home for like 7-8 years. But yeah, I'm really grateful for those two. They helped me to get back on my feet. And unfortunately, we're not close anymore. We've gone in our separate directions. But I do believe that period, that season of life served a purpose. And again, I have nothing but love. I don't harbor any resentment or negative feelings towards anyone. Genuinely. I just don't believe that holding on to resentment or holding a grudge does any good for anyone involved. So yeah, that was a period, and then Alex and I got our own place, and then we made the decision about a year ago to move out of Melbourne to the country, which is where we are now. I have shared on my YouTube channel a video. Alice, stop being so cute. You're actually adorable. You're actually adorable. I wish you could see her right now. She's being so cute. I've done a video on the whole process of moving here. Alex and I started our own YouTube channel, which we're documenting our journey of moving out here. And I also have left out a huge chunk of my story, which is that I discovered through that really difficult time, through that rock bottom in my life, I discovered meditation and mindfulness. I had been meditating for some time, but only really in small amounts through yoga. So I was really into yoga. I practiced yoga for many years, and in yoga there is a component of meditation, and a lot of the practices like breathing techniques and focusing and being aware of your body and all of these different things are very intertwined with meditation. And it was in that time that I really dove deep into meditation as a tool to help to support me through that period. And I really do believe that meditation is what helped me to come to the realization of what I needed to do in that situation. And I believe that it also was what got me through, like mentally, being able to cope with the stress and the fear and all of the judgment and all of that. Because what happens in meditation is we're creating a space to observe our experience without judgment, with complete acceptance and just observation of what we're experiencing, the thoughts that we're having, the feelings, the emotions that are coming up. It's a space where we can just allow it all to be. And again, I won't go into detail because I've talked about it before, but when I was losing the pregnancy, I had a realization, I had a vision that I wanted to become a meditation teacher. And so I began to study. I did a teacher training course to study to become a meditation teacher. And that has kind of really taken my career, if you want to call it that, in a completely different direction. It's so hard to tell my story because I am going to jump around a lot because there's so many different components, there's so many different parts. I've left out a huge chunk of that, which was my YouTube channel and my nail art journey. I started painting my nails as a way to cope with the anxiety that I was experiencing in my early 20s. I recognized that I wanted something to help to slow me down because I was so stressed all the time, to help me to focus and relieve my stress. And so I started painting my nails, and that was what really inspired me to create an Instagram account and inspired me to create a YouTube channel. And that is actually how I'm here today, sharing online, is through that journey of being a nail artist. So I left that huge chunk out. I might see if I can, no, I'm not going to bother editing this or trying to perfect it, because I also am letting go of perfectionism. That was another pattern of coping with all of the stress and the feelings of inadequacy and feeling just not good enough, was that I became a real perfectionist. And so I'm just not going to do that. But yeah, that was a huge chunk of my 20s as well. Around probably 21, 22, I started painting my nails as a way to, no, it was earlier than that. I was like 19. It was when I started uni. I started that creative, that was the way that I expressed myself creatively, was through nails and nail art. And I know so many of you have been here for the whole ride. I know so many of you have followed along on this journey with me, and I'm so grateful if you're still here from the nail trail days. That was such a fun part of my life, and it really gave me so many amazing experiences. I got to meet so many beautiful people. I got to work with some incredible brands. I got to work for myself. I didn't ever realize that it was possible to do something different than that traditional career path. But being a content creator on YouTube and social media, Instagram and now TikTok, has actually opened up so many doors for me to be able to earn a living in a different way. And so to jump back to my becoming a meditation teacher story, I made the decision in 2021 to quit my government job that I'd been at for 8 years, and I got a job part-time as a bit of a bridge to start to pursue and work more on my own passions, which were content creation and also meditation teaching. And I started my brand Kindful Co., which I've now given up. And I know some of you have probably heard about that, heard that story. But yeah, I just kind of came to a point where I realized that I'm trying to put myself into these different boxes. I was putting myself into the box of being the nail trail, the nail artist. And then I was putting myself into the box of being a meditation and mindfulness teacher. And now I'm at a place where I don't want to carry any labels or limits or titles or categories for the work that I'm doing. I mean, overall, it's generally about wanting people to live more authentically, to live more creatively, to live more mindfully, to be more connected to their true essence, their true selves. That is really what I'm passionate about. But the way that expresses itself, the way that manifests, doesn't have to be in one particular way or shape or form. It can be in all kinds of different ways. It can be in all different formats, and that's something that I'm really playing with at the moment, is learning to connect with my real self and learning to have the freedom to express myself in so many different ways. Like that little girl who wanted to play the trumpet but also wanted to be the main character in the school play, but also loved art and was also really curious about nature and animals and all kinds of different things. And so every day for me now is about getting back to that person that I am, and that is really what I want my content and what I'm sharing on here to reflect. And so that has been my journey, and it has been difficult. And in particular, I know I've shared on the podcast a lot about the last couple of years since I did, like I said, I got that part-time job, and then after a year of doing that, I realized that I don't want to do this either. I want to just work for myself and have that full freedom and flexibility to be able to do and explore all the different things that I love. But it has been really challenging financially because I didn't realize how hard it would be for me to make it work. And that's what I'm still in the process of, is learning how to support myself and unlearning all of the ideas of how I thought a successful career needed to look. And it's an ongoing process for me. That's where I'm at right now. I'm also focused now on really learning to love myself completely and unconditionally, and I've come so far. I don't suffer from anxiety anymore. I don't suffer from an eating disorder. I'm still working through like disordered eating thoughts and patterns, but it's more so learning to love my body the way it is and learning to have a really healthy relationship with my body and with food. And I'm also really working on this idea that my self-worth is tied to productivity and is tied to output and is tied to any form of external validation. That is what I'm really working on now, is my relationship with money, my relationship with my work, productivity, my relationship with my body, and my relationship with myself. And so it's a much softer, gentler energy now that I am kind of dwelling in, and like I say, there is no destination, there's no end point to this journey, but I feel the rain is like just distracting me because it's so loud and strong, but I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. And I think that that is something that for most of my life I haven't felt. I've always been thinking about what's wrong with me. I've always been jumping to the next thing. I've always been looking to the future and really had a hard time just being present with where I am and being okay with where I am and being accepting of who I am in every different stage and version. And I know right now that I am where I need to be, and I just wish that for you as well. I just hope that you can, even if there are things, and of course there are things going on that are difficult. Of course there are things going on that aren't the way that you would ideally desire them to be, but I hope that you can find some sort of acceptance and peace with where you find yourself right now, and know that you always have the power to change direction. You always have the power to start again. You always have the power to just take things one step at a time, to just address the things that are coming up moment to moment in your experience. You don't have to fix it all or change it all in one go. That is the point of the journey of life, is to overcome many and multiple obstacles, and to, with every step, learn more about ourselves, love more about ourselves, accept more about ourselves. And one last thing that I will say is that when I found myself at that place, that rock bottom, that place of just not wanting to be here, just really wanting to end it all just felt so overwhelming. And I've kind of had this analogy that I've been sitting with, is it felt like this big tangled ball of string, and my life just felt like a mess. It felt like there was just so many problems, all of these different areas of my life that just didn't feel right, that just weren't working. And the last 5 years for me have really been a process of untangling that knotted mess, bit by bit, pulling one string at a time and kind of dismantling all of this mess, this jumble of beliefs and behaviors and patterns and unhealthy habits that just weren't me. All of this stuff that just wasn't who I really am, and just pulling it all apart, dismantling it, and just simplifying, like throwing that bit out and then throwing that bit out, and you just look at one piece at a time. It's like an onion, often we hear this analogy of the onion, peeling back layer and layer and layer to come back to the core of who we really are. And there's always going to be something, and it can be tiring and it can be exhausting to feel like, oh gosh, there's still something. But what happens is the more we peel back, sometimes it can feel like we're taking one step forward and 2 steps back, but really we're just creating a greater capacity to feel the deeper stuff, to I don't know how to explain that any better than what I've just said. So hopefully some of that made sense. That has been my journey, and I'm so grateful for where I am right now. Of course, there's still stuff that I'm working through, but again, I just feel so much more grounded and peaceful, and I wish that for you too. And I want you to remember that being who you are, being your authentic self, and I know we hear a lot these days about the importance of being authentic and being yourself, but if we can just put everyone else's ideas of how that looks aside for a moment and just look at being who you are with what you believe is really important to you, your core values, the energy, the essence that you bring to the different facets of life, just that inner child who is untainted by the world, being who you are is the most important role that you will play in this life, is the most important thing that you can do for the people that you love, for humanity. We are finding ourselves at this point in time where things are changing and they're changing fast. And the most important thing we can do is to get quiet and to connect with who we really are. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share my journey and my story with you. I hope that you have got something from this. I hope it's been valuable, and I'm just sending you all of my love and gratitude, and just keep going. Just keep being you. And I have tons and tons and tons and tons of resources on my podcast, my YouTube, and in my private community, which you can find all the links for down below, to help you and to support you, because that is my real passion, is to want to help other people through the things that I've gone through. I was talking for so long that the camera battery died. So I just wanted to finally say once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I'm really excited for what's ahead, because I have a lot of ideas and things in store that I'm excited to share. I also have an update about the podcast. As it is my 100th episode, I have decided to stop, to take a pause. I'm not sure if I want to come back. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on with this podcast. I have been feeling for a while now that it's not where I want to be putting all my energy, and it's almost in a way stopping me from focusing on other things that I really want to focus on, because I've felt a little bit of pressure to continue the podcast and create podcast episodes that are really valuable, but I've also kind of felt I feel like I'm being pulled in a different direction. I'm really wanting to put more energy into YouTube, because I just feel like I can express myself so much more. I can share visually what I'm doing with my life, what I'm making and creating, but I can also share my voice, and I can share messages, and I can kind of bring together all these different elements of myself. Like I said, I have struggled a lot throughout my life, feeling like I can't express all the different parts of myself. And I feel like YouTube, this kind of longer form video format, really lends itself to this more broader self-expression that I want to explore. And so I'm not saying that I'm going to not upload to the podcast anymore. I think I just want to take a bit of a pause and focus my energy on YouTube more. And maybe I will upload here and there if the if the YouTube videos that I'm creating lend themselves to that audio format. I might just upload them to the podcast. I'm not entirely sure. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you that update, because this may be the last episode. Maybe not, never say never, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So yeah, thank you. This has been an incredible journey. I am so, again, grateful. I know I've said it like 100 times, but I truly am. I love what I do here, and I love you, and I'm sending you all my love. All right, take care. Please be gentle with yourself, and I'll see you soon. Bye. I love